the king of the Iron Fist tournament, otherwise known as Tekken. Fans of the series have been clashing fists for over 30 years. With each new game, new mechanics has been added to the game, from Tekken 6 introducing the Rage and Bound system to Tekken 8's Heat system. Tekken has evolved over the years. Katsuhiro Hadara, once a voice and part of the original development team, took the reins after Hijima Nakatani left the series. Hadara's influence can strongly be felt from Tekken 6 and up, as the games begun leaning heavily towards extending combos via the juggle system. Longtime fans welcome this change for the most part, but as of Season 2 of Tekken 8, Hadara's influence might be starting to have a negative effect on the series. From overpowered combo strings, busted characters, and some very weird decisions, this is the lowest the series has ever been. In time, we'll dive into Tekken's future, but today, I would like to look at a past game in the series, Tekken 4.
Get ready for the next battle!
Often remembered for its significant changes in gameplay and graphics, Tekken 4 was the first game in the series to add walls and obstacles to stages. It is the only game in the series where the player can move freely before a match starts. It's also the only game where the player is unable to jump backwards or vertically, but the player can still jump forward. Also, known as the introduction to the wall system, fighters can interact with the stages by either bouncing off the walls or destroying obstacles like columns and statues. This alone was a huge step up from the games before, where the fighters fought in an endless void basically. Some stages, such as a parking garage, the player can launch their opponents into the ceiling for added damage. Honestly, I wish this feature stayed with the series, for it could have been expanded upon. I thought it was neat. To me, it added more personality and gave Tekken even more of a unique identity from other fighting games of its time. Tekken 4, in my opinion, is also the last game in the canon to portray the surrounding cast in a serious light. Characters like Paul Phoenix, who nowadays has been reduced to comic relief, pre-Tekken 5 was taken much more seriously. Paul was Kazuya's rival in the first game, otherwise known as the first Tekken. By the events of Tekken 4, it's revealed that Paul was able to defeat the god of fighting himself, Ogre. Had he not preemptively left the battle, Paul would have most likely won Tekken 3, but Ogre transformed into True Ogre and the battle went on in his absence, with Jin taking True Ogre down. Some characters continued to carry over their personality into Tekken 5, like Julia, but by the time Tekken 7 rolls around, she's suddenly a blogger. Tekken 4's base roster had 23 playable characters, which was the same as the base roster from Tekken 3, which also had 23 playable characters. Tekken 4 introduced 3 new characters to the series. Steve Fox, a British boxer who was running from the Mafia after failing to throw a fight for them. Steve's fighting style meant he didn't use his legs to fight, which for the player meant learning to play a character who only had to rely on the punch buttons, with the kicking buttons becoming dodging buttons in a sense. Christy Montero, a beautiful Brazilian corporea fighter. Taking the place of Eddie temporarily, Christy bought the same fighting style which was first seen in Tekken 3. Fun fact, Eddie was supposed to be a female in Tekken 3, but the development artists had a hard time designing a female using the corporea fighting style, so they created a male instead, which gave birth to Eddie. And finally, Craig Marduk, an Australian Val Tato fighter. Marduk was the first character in the series to tower over his opponents. Considered another grappler-style character like King, Marduk utilized heavy attacks and quick grapples to rack up damage on his opponents. Other characters were also introduced, but in essence were Echo fighters. These characters are Violent, Lee in disguise hiding from Heihachi while conducting test data for combat during the tournament, Miharu Harano, Xiaoyu's best friend and high school classmate, and yours truly, Eddie Goto, who taught Christy how to fight before leaving to go rescue his master. After suffering an arm injury, he is seen in Christy's epilogue video. Combat, who was a 4th new character introduced in Tekken 4, is just a Mokujin skin. It was created by Lee's company. Combat copies a random character's fighting style before a round. Playing as Combat, the player must be able to recognize whose moves is copying by paying attention to whose fighting stance is adopting. Tekken 4 also brought back Tekken Force, a beat-em-up minigame where the player fought against waves of enemies with a boss character waiting at the end. Instead of it being a side-scroller this time around, it's in a full 3D environment. Beating all 4 stages unlocks the stage Hanmaru. The story picks up after the events of Tekken 3. Kazuya, thought to have died at the end of Tekken 3, was still alive thanks to G Corporation saving him, taking an interest in his devil gene for research purposes. Heihachi, unaware that Kazuya was still alive but knew G Corporation had his body, sent in the Tekken Force to retrieve the body. To their surprise, Kazuya, fully revived, defeated the Tekken Force. Heihachi, needing the devil gene from either Kazuya or Gene, announced the 4th tournament in hopes of drawing the two Mishimas out into the open. All characters' prologues are canon to the Tekken 4 story, but only Gene Kazuma's epilogue is canon leading to the events of Tekken 5. Tekken 4's soundtrack was probably one of the most memorable things about the game. Airport and Beach was my personal favorites, as well as the actual visuals of the stage. Though everything else about the game, outside the story, was sadly not well received, and for good reasons. Tekken 4 toned down combos. Out of all the games combined, 4's combo ability was at its weakest in the series. Sidestepping also took a hit, making it borderline useless to evade attacks. But it did at least introduce sidewalking as well as the ability to add buttons specifically for sidestepping. As I mentioned earlier, players could only jump forward, unlike the previous games before where you were able to jump backwards as well as move backwards while crouching. Because of the new game's engine, this left a lot of characters outclassed in a tournament environment. Characters like Steve and Jin were completely overpowered with their quick jabs. The walls also weren't favored because some characters couldn't utilize them as well as other characters for damage output, which made the game even more unbalanced. The parking garage was notorious for its ceiling. Some characters were able to launch characters high enough to hit it. Only a small amount of the roster could take advantage of this, and again made the game even more unbalanced. It's a shame because I like Tekken 4. Revisiting it from time to time makes you appreciate how far the series has come in the terms of gameplay and visuals. Though most mechanics would be abandoned, Tekken 5 would bring back the wall mechanic and expand upon it. I wish one day Hadara would look back at Tekken 4's levels and expand upon the mechanic, because I really believe Tekken was onto something amazing at the time. They just didn't execute it right. What was your favorite memory of Tekken 4? Is there anything you would like to see return to the series from the game? Please leave your comments below. I'm interested in your opinions. If you enjoyed looking back on Tekken 4 with me, maybe you'll be interested in looking back at another old game with me. Join me as we look at The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time and see just how useful the ice arrows really were. Click on this video right here, and I'll be seeing you soon.